Okay, Jay, so you have a note written down here called the determination to do something incorrectly. And then a second note that says, this is why I really like having a trainer, which I'm assuming you mean in like the fitness sense.
Yeah. So, so I was sort of coming to this realization recently as I've been working out. And I think it kind of like extrapolates further out into like the rest of my life sometimes.
Okay.
And possibly is relatable to other people as well. So I wanted to, but I felt like the example was really hitting me over the head whilst I was at the gym working out.
Okay.
So a lot of times, basically the way it works is, we get down there, our trainer will write a bunch of things on the whiteboard, a bunch of exercises we have to do. And, like for example, something we were doing last week was dumbbell press, which if you are unaware is where you just hold a single weight in each hand, you lay back down on the bench, you bring it down to your chest, you put it up.
Yep.
Very, very simple exercise.
Yes.
Right. And so the way I was doing it though, I was bringing it up and I forget I was bringing up my arms to an unusual angle, and our trainer came over. He's like, actually, you should bring them up. You should like try and get the weights to land like more right above your eyes rather than where you're going. And I made the adjustment, and it was like, oh, that makes this way easier. Right. And and it was just like going through the math in my head. I was like, that's so weird that it's like, of course that's his job. His job is to like make sure you're using proper form. But like the argument I would have been having with myself beforehand was that like, okay, if I lift them up and it goes above my eyes, that's easier. So probably the way I'm supposed to do it is to make it come up more above my chest, because that's a little bit harder. So it's probably working the muscles better. And it's just like, no, incorrect on both fronts. It's like, it's harder because you're doing it wrong.
Right.
And it's just
right.
like my just so built-in voice in my head is that like the harder way must be the appropriate way, because that's why it's harder.
Yes.
And it's just like, I feel like this is like a constant struggle that goes through my brain. Even when we were talking about like on the wives episode with like the tweezers or the nail clippers or something, like it's like I have the solution. It's like in my mind, it's like, I'm not supposed to know where the tweezers are. Like that's like been my internal dialogue for 29 years.
Right.
It's like, you're not supposed to know where the tweezers are. If you were supposed to, like, they're supposed to be hard to find. Like
it's a characteristic
of needing tweezers. It's just like, and it's like, that's so stupid. It's like, they're not. You just put them somewhere and then that's where they are. It's just like, and I don't know how to even describe this like thought pattern of like actively making things more difficult because you think that must be the more correct way, even though like you have your trainer, like have Gabriel come over and he's like, actually you should do it this way. And it's like, oh, that's easier. I could probably lift more weight now,
Right.
It's just like, it's such a win-win. It's like, not only did you correct my form and make the movement easier, but because it's easier now and I'm doing it appropriately, I could actually get even stronger because I could lift more weight doing it the appropriate way.
Right.
And it's just like, in my mind, it's like, all those things can't be true. It can't be such a win-win scenario. That's not how life works. Life works that you do things the hard way and then you get results. And it's like, it's not that I couldn't make the appropriate form harder by adding more weight. It's just, does any of this make sense?
It's absolutely making sense. Yeah, no. And I think that like it's the analogy that I would kind of extrapolate from it is that I think in a very similar way, like I want to be handy. Like I think that I know like how to do some things. I usually would qualify it as like just enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
But frequently what happens with this is that like I almost have too much information to where I will try to solve things in a way that is more complicated than is necessary.
Right.
So it's almost like my mind is using so much information, whereas like almost if you were looking at it in a much more simpler sense, you might just say, or you could just tweak it this way. And it's like, that's true.
Right.
That would work. And this happens with Alice's mom in particular all the time. Like it is so often the case that like I will be trying to solve something in a very complicated way. And she's like, well, why don't you just try this? And it's like, you're right.
It's too simple.
You're absolute. You know what? I wanted to go and pull out all the tools, but with the way you did it, yeah.
I had a situation like this very, like, not 2 weeks ago. I was just trying to fix my couch, and it just, I was like looking at I'd like pulled off the cloth on the other side, and I'm like looking at all the wood and how it's supposed to be arranged, and I can see exactly where it's broken. And I'm like, okay, well, as far as I can tell, the only way to solve this is I'm going to have to like find another rogue piece of wood. I'm going to have to saw it down to this side, and then I'm going to have to like nail this piece of wood to here so that I can nail this piece of wood to here. You know, like I had this whole like convoluted strategy, and I'm like, the problem is I don't even own a saw. So now I'm gonna have to go to the hardware store and get a saw. But then I'm like, I don't even have anywhere to use the saw. So I'm gonna have to go in order to fix my couch, which shouldn't be hard. I'm gonna have to leave my house, go to the hardware store, buy a saw, buy sawhorses, buy wood, come home, do a bunch of measures, and it was just like, and then eventually I was just like, I like took a breath. I came back. I looked at it. I was like, oh, you know what? I think it also might work if I just shove these two things so they're overlapping and then nail it down. And like I did that, and it's been perfectly fine. And it was a super easy fix.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just like, you know, it was like, but like I was just standing there like frustrated for like half an hour. Like this is like, and then when it worked the other way, I was like, oh, this is easy. But yeah,
it's so true. It's just a thing.
And so I think the way sometimes this like creeps out into the greater world is that so often, like what you were describing, it's like you have an idea for something, and it's like because you're the one who had the idea, you're like so self-assured that this is you because you thought of it. It's a good idea,
right?
And like this is the way it'll have to go. And I feel like it can often make me. I can only speak for me. It often makes me feel like other people's like ideas are like less good.
like they're like it was your idea, so it's like how could anybody else be more qualified to execute the idea than me because it was my idea,
right? Like
you can't possibly know how to do my idea better.
Like people put blinders up for like better solutions because you've already thought of a way that you could do it that would work.
Sure.
It's like I know this will work, but I think you made like a video like once upon a time like how to improve anything. It's like, yes, I thought of a way that will work. And I know if I execute it this way, we will have the solution, the desired result. So let's just do it that way because it's already figured out.
Right.
And someone's like, but couldn't we do it this way and it'll be faster? But like, we have a plan. You're complicating the plan.
Right.
It's like, no, but this is a better plan. It's like, I thought of this way. We're doing it this way.
Right.
You know?
Yes. Yes. And it's, I feel like we had the digital 10K that we did recently.
Yeah.
And I feel like this was like an event where some of this kind of cropped up because one of the things that we really wanted to do, so we were going to be running a 10K on the Cave Spring High School track.
Yes.
The one that like you and I would have run on during our cross country years in high school. And while we were doing it, we were going to be live streaming the entire thing, and we wanted for people to be able to see us kind of at like multiple points in the track so that like if you are watching at home or participating or just want to be involved, there's visually something to examine as it's happening.
Right.
And like as we started attempting to figure out how to do this, I think all of our minds went very complicated very quickly. And we were like, okay, well, we could buy like a 500-foot like Ethernet cable and see if the school would allow us to like plug into like the wireless. Then we could run it all the way out to the track. And then if we have a laptop there, then we can like set up a webcam off of that laptop and then do this. And it was like, or we could put phones on tripods and Zoom call each other and then just broadcast the Zoom call.
Yeah.
And it was like,
it was so easy. It was like all the internet. All we needed was data. You could just use data on your phone to connect to the Zoom call.
Right.
And then, yeah, you're right. We just put 3 phones around the track. We had them all dial in. We put battery chargers on all of them so they wouldn't die.
Yeah.
And that was it. Then they were all just dotted in the Zoom call, and then we just broadcast the Zoom call. It was like, what an elegant solution.
Right.
And all of our, but it like...
And I think that's exactly it. I think elegant solutions are much more simple than you think. I think that complexity has this like place in the sun where it's like we all admire complexity as if that's like
this is exactly it.
Yeah,
you're right, because it's like you're like, oh, that looks like it was like it's so impressive you pulled off this really complicated thing, but it's like I think people don't lift up elegance enough.
Right.
It's not better because it was more complicated and you figured it out.
Yes. Oh, okay. I know. Okay, I have another example
Okay.
of this. So in my early days of aquarium-ing, I quickly ran into a situation where I needed to do plumbing.
Okay.
And so plumbing is not something that I am even remotely trained to do at all. Not even a little bit. But it doesn't mean that over time I didn't get better at it. But I would always go back and like look at my early photos, and I remember being so proud of them. And I posted some of them like to my Facebook page, and I think I literally like used like the caption like top-notch plumbing or something. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what was I thinking? There are like 75 unnecessary elbows going from this pipe to this pipe.
Yeah.
Just to like find a way to make it work. And so it's like, it looks complicated and therefore seems impressive, but really all it was that I was really bad at plumbing.
Yeah.
And didn't know how to like take a 45-degree turn better.
Right.
And so instead of being able to like slowly curve it, I made like a U, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like whipping every which way. And yeah, so good plumbing is very simple.
Right.
I admire it.
Right. So yeah. You problem solved this whole thing and made a complicated thing that worked.
It worked. Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Absolutely worked.
Right.
Yep. But it absolutely looked more impressive than it was.
Right.
Oh man, this is fitting so nicely.
This is like,
the very idea.
like, are we all doing this though? Or like, are we all making things more complicated because we assume that by making it more complicated, we're doing it the right way?
I have to tell you that I feel like one of the characteristics, not to like hail back too much, but the toxic person in my life, I felt like was one of those people where it was like, unless things could be as complicated as humanly possible, it wasn't as good as it could be.
Oh.
And it was almost like, that's pretty interesting. It's like, I need I need for it to be hard, because if it's easy, then it's not good.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, but that's
Yeah.
not true.
It's not true.
Those two things are not necessarily.
This is a very
the same.
cathartic conversation.
You see what I mean? Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
like, this was what was going through my head as I'm lifting weights the other day. Like, it was just like, it felt so like unfair in my mind that like you mean the easy way that feels good is the right way?
Right.
Like, but this way is harder. So that must be using, it's like, you just, that way it's harder because it's not as good.
Right.
And you're not doing as much.
Yeah. You're not using your body as
efficiently.
As efficiently. Yeah. It is stronger than that.
Right.
Oh man.
Just,
People are going to have to give us examples of this. What have you made more complicated than it needed to be?
Right.
And what was the simpler solution?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys have any potential feedback on this topic, because I'm very curious, hopefully it made sense. I feel like Jay and I were both like, as we're
maybe we're making this explanation more complicated.
That is exactly what I was going to say.
No.
Yeah. We're like, oh, and here's an example, and here's an example, and here's an example. It's like, or just do things more simply. Yeah. So yeah, please, hopefully this made sense, and send us your feedback to popcornculturepod@gmail.com, or just go and start a conversation on Reddit, because I'll be very curious. Maybe I'll try to find my top-notch plumbing post and show you guys where it could have just been way simpler.
Way simpler.
Way simpler. Okay, so that being said,